Hey everybody, it's the Ignorant Sheriff. Today I am going to talk to you about two different types of intuition found in Myers-Briggs personality types, extroverted intuition and introverted intuition, also known as NE and NI. I will discuss how they operate, common misconceptions people have about them, and what they look like from an outside perspective. Without further ado, let's get started. This is a model of a well-supported, accurate conclusion. Everything inside the dotted region is truths, while everything outside of it is falsities. Regardless of the type of intuition someone uses, this is the model they end up with when they reach an accurate conclusion and they understand everything it's comprised of. These conclusions can be formed beliefs, goals, or plans. Generally speaking, feeling types spend more time drawing conclusions based on emotions, while thinker types spend more time drawing conclusions based on objective topics. However, developed intuits will spend time in both areas. Until this model is mostly formed, much of it remains subconscious. How somebody reaches a conclusion depends on the type of intuition they use. Let's look at NI. NI approaches a new thought by sorting through all known truths. From there, it creates baseline assumptions. These assumptions are very vague, but it will give them a good place to start. From there, NI will sift through all those baseline assumptions, searching for connections. Once they can make enough connections, this will form new assumptions. This process repeats as they move closer to the conclusion. Note that every level is full of information and multiple assumptions. The larger the block, the more information it contains. Each time they are able to narrow the field, the old assumptions become supporting details. This eventually leads them to a pinpoint conclusion. NI is extremely reliable, but takes a considerable amount of time to function when starting from scratch. Luckily, most NI users have many half pyramids formed to use at their disposal. Because NI starts from the ground up, they make excellent long-term planners and form the most accurate conclusions. They are natural problem solvers and notice connections in the world very easily. Now that we know how NI works, let's take a look at NE. Unlike NE starts out with a conclusion already drawn. From there, NE uses inductive reasoning to support their conclusion. Just like NI, every time new assumptions are made, previous assumptions become supporting details. With both types of intuition, the thought process is complete when the person can break down their entire stance to the core truths. If you can only get halfway, then are forced to make a large assumption based off little information, the thought structure is weak and more research should be done. It is important to note that very little of research done and assumptions made should be from outside sources. Outside sources form weak arguments. When you rely on a source, you are assuming they covered all the bases as shown in this model. Unfortunately, more times than not, your source did not look like this model. Instead, it looks more like this. Contrary to popular belief, by conducting your own research while remaining unbiased will lead you to more accurate conclusions than if you were to rely mostly on others' findings. If you find yourself using more outside sources than logical reasoning to reach your conclusions, there's a good chance you are a sensing type instead of an intuitive type. Shifting back to NE tends to jump around frequently from idea to idea. It can do this easier than NI because they are going off much less information at the time. This ability allows them to excel greatly in activities that require them to think quick on their feet. It is also arguably the best function for coming up with new innovative ideas that have never been seen before. NE is very spontaneous, while NI is more methodical. Many successful comedians and engineers are NE users. However, with every strength comes a weakness. While being able to jump around from idea to idea can be beneficial, it also means more times than not they arrive at false conclusions. This isn't because NE is unintelligent and doesn't know better. This occurs because, unlike NI, NE users start their thoughts from the top down. This means the supporting details directly under their conclusions can be true while their conclusion is false. It is also notable that because NE uses inductive reasoning, it is much more difficult for them to arrive at the same conclusion as NI. In order to do so, they must jump around several times until they land in the middle. When looking for a good place to start, it is best for NE users to confide in a developed NI user. NI, on the other hand, has too much information to jump around. Because they start from a collection of known truths and make basic assumptions off of them, they aren't likely to change their thoughts with the drop of a hat. This trait can both help and hurt them. It benefits them by giving them a strong base, which promotes confidence. However, when they get stuck halfway through a thought or plan, the same principle causes them paralysis. NI users can be stuck for lengthy periods before they build up their pyramid strong enough to feel comfortable enacting their plans. When this happens, NE users are most useful to them, since they work from the top down. Collaborating with one will speed up the process. Let's talk about outside perspective. At some point, every NE user is going to get their idea tossed out by an NI user. Beyond popular belief, it is not because NI users are closed-minded. The reason why NI tosses out an idea like this is because they start from the ground up. They are aware of all the falsities of this thought. On a related note, young or undeveloped NE users are more likely to live in denial. They find it easier to never question anything to avoid discovering falsities. This puts them in a delusional mindset. If you are an NI user and are put into this situation, establish rapport with the NE user by first agreeing on known truths. Then, if you wish, point out the falsities closest to the truths they are aware of. If the NE user is developed, they will shift their stance. NI users that believe NE users are simply stupid assume that NE users are aware of these foundational falsities, which most of the time is not the case. There will also be times when NE users disregard NI. This happens because instead of seeing this, the NE users see this. They assume the NI user is doing what an undeveloped NE user does. They aren't aware of all the time the NI user has spent to reach their conclusion, and how strong the foundation is supporting it. Now, before all you NE users start berating your NI users, know that it is exhausting to explain a full pyramid of information to an NE user. This is especially true when they actively resist. So please be patient with them and try to listen when they try to explain their reasoning. All that being said, there are exceptions to everything. This brings us to our next point, undeveloped intuition. Undeveloped intuition is prone to causing formation of inaccurate conclusions and conflicts to arise. Undeveloped NI looks like this. The user only does minimal homework, then takes a guess at a conclusion within vague assumptions, making their conclusion false. However, that being said, NI-dominant types, even when wrong, tend to be close to their mark because they are still operating in a narrow field. The accuracy of their conclusions is dependent on how much homework they did on the subject. Undeveloped NE looks like this. Undeveloped NE users argue just to argue. What they say holds very little truth. When proven wrong, they often attempt to pretend that their original point was far closer to the truth than it actually was. In conclusion, both NI and NE have great strengths and weaknesses, and by working together, they can fill in each other's missing pieces and continue to grow. Lastly, never doubt someone's intuition until you have explored it further. If you like my video, don't forget to click like and share it with your friends. This is the Ignorance Sheriff, reminding you to ask more and assume less.